Oh my God, I'm so sore right now. I finally got back into the gym on Tuesday after like being a lazy bastard for, I don't know, for like 2 months. It's from like mid-July until, well, early July until now. Pretty much all of July I didn't work out at all. And then most of August I didn't work out at all, except for some hikes. And then I went to the gym on Tuesday and now I'm freaking dying, man. I'm actually going again today because I'm sick of being a lazy fat bastard and it's time to get swole. Um, but that is not why we're here. We are here to talk about not okay. I want to talk about He-Man. All right, the new He-Man, Masters of the Universe, whatever, from Kevin Smith. I did get screeners for this, and I watched the first episode with my kids, who are 11 and 14, and although I think 10 and 14 at the time that we watched it. We watched the first episode, and I was like nobody enjoyed it. The kids didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it. My daughter, my son, nobody enjoyed this episode. Now, of course, they don't have He-Man in their past. Like I had tons of He-Man figures, and I loved He-Man, and I thought She-Ra was hot, and when I was a kid, before I really even acknowledged hotness or whatever. But man, I just thought it was boring and kind of dry and kind of blah. And I could just see where it was going with, killing off He-Man right away and establishing, Teela as the new protagonist. And I don't really care that much about that. If it had been a really good episode that really grabbed me and pulled me in, I would have kept watching it. I kind of wish I had, just so I would have reviewed it at the time. It just ended up falling like right when we were on vacation, so it was kind of tough to do that. But after one episode, if I'm just like, this is really lame, I don't necessarily keep watching. Like, life is too short. The interesting thing is that, since the release of the new Masters of the Universe, it's been politicized so heavily. So, one group of people says it sucks because, Kevin Smith lied to us, which I think he pretty much did. They've railroaded He-Man and made this all about Teela, and it's all this woke garbage. And I haven't watched the whole show, but, that all seems pretty reasonable as a critique. But then on the other side, of course, we have people saying, oh, look at all these, all these white male entitled like geeks who can't handle, strong female leads and all that. And then the whole thing just becomes this like culture war, right? And it's just this culture war, the woke versus the anti-woke, yada, yada, yada. And the actual discussion of quality gets lost in the mix. And I think that's fine. I mean, obviously, like, I engage in the culture wars all the time, and I can't really critique other people for doing that. But it's interesting also that, like, if you then level a critique against Masters of the Universe, you're immediately written off because you are just some entitled angry fan. We saw this with the Snyder Cut and a bunch of other things. Like, you can't just have a reasonable discussion of this because you're immediately boxed into this category of, angry nerd or whatever. And I think it happens, of course, the culture war takes two sides, right? It happens the other direction also. I'm more sympathetic to one because I have my own biases, and I think that the rise of sort of the woke social justice mentality. I don't like the mentality. I agree with a lot of social justice causes, but I really don't like the mentality of the social justice warriors, right? The anti-free speech, the always making everything about gender and race rather than like about story quality, and always making everything about like token diversity rather than about like actual diversity. It's just, it all feels very shallow and very like the point of it is just to make yourself seem more virtuous and more superior. It's more superior than the other guy. So I just think, like on a certain level, we have to be able to get past all of that and actually talk about, a TV show or a movie or a game's just quality, right? Like The Last of Us Part 2. we can say objectively that game was very good looking. It had a nice soundtrack. The graphics were phenomenal. Um, the acting was really top notch. There's a lot of objectively good things about that game, but I can also say I think there were some objectively bad things about that game. I think that the combat is mediocre at best. I think all the crafting and like picking stuff up, like that's tedious, and that's not really unique to Last of Us. There's lots of other games like Horizon Zero Dawn and any number of other popular games that are very tedious in nature. That you have to constantly be taken away from the action to perform more mundane tasks, and then the action itself is only so. I think that also, I mean, I think it gets a little more complicated when you talk about story. Like, I thought the story in The Last of Us Part 2 was super disappointing. And not because of how it ended necessarily. I thought that they just couldn't, they didn't take a position in the end. Like, is this going to be a game about revenge, or is it going to be a game about mercy? What's it going to be? Like, make up your mind. That the whole ending just really bothered me. But of course, much of the discussion boils down to all this culture war shit. Like some people are pissed off that there's like a trans character in the game, and I just don't care. Yes, does it seem like Naughty Dog is trying to score woke points by putting a trans character in this game? Yes, it does. Do I care? No, not really. Like, if they do it well, I don't care. And actually, I kind of liked that character, so whatever. Does it seem kind of silly contextually in this like radical post-apocalyptic cult that this kid would like do that? Yeah, it does. But I mean, whatever. Do I think Naughty Dog is just trying to get woke points? Yes. Does it actually hurt the story? No. Do I give a shit? No. The culture war stuff to me is less important ultimately than the quality of the game and the story itself. And there was just so much wrong with that game, like right from the beginning. And killing off Joel. The whole notion of revenge from the outset just seems so off, given like the context of the first game and whatnot. But I guess, what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say that sometimes the culture war stuff gets in the way of our discussion of quality. And I think ultimately, when we're dealing with things like games or books or movies or TV shows or music or whatever, like, quality is important. And I think that you can use the culture war stuff to sort of get away from having to confront quality issues, right? You can say, that Beyonce is like a good musician, and then you can say that anyone who disagrees is like a misogynist or a racist, right? Music journalism. You think games journalism is bad, but music journalism is a cesspool of propping up these like pop stars, these big corporate pop stars, to the detriment of any sort of like indie stuff. And that extends to like this notion that like white guys with guitars are some sort of problematic demographic, like as though all white guys with guitars are the same. That's another thing like that I hate about the whole like criticism of like white men. Like, I get this white male thing all the time, right? Like, I am so different than so many of the white dudes I know. I mean, a lot of white people when they see me, they look at me and they like cross the street or something. Like, I walk in my kilt or like my like tie-dye, fucking dashiki or something. Like, I look like a fucking Viking hippie most of the time. And like, if I walked into some sort of like corporate boardroom or something, people would like call security. What does white mean? What does it mean to be male? Like, why are we making so many of these judgments based on these very broad strokes? It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't. So I'm getting lost in a little bit of a tirade here, but the culture war, man, it's fucked up, and I think that we're in a twilight zone period. We're like it's good that we're making progress so that there's more equality and fairness, and people who in the past didn't have a chance now, and people who couldn't get married can go make that mistake for themselves now, and and women can have more of a shot in the economy and all that. But at the same time, like look at the way that capitalism is working for everyone. Yeah, women can get jobs now too. Like they can have careers, but now you both need to have one to buy a house. Like cool victory here. We have more gender equality and more racial equality, but it's harder than ever for people to just survive. Like you can't just be like a high school graduate and have a house and 3 kids and a stay-at-home wife. Now everybody needs to work whether you want to or not, and chipping into this corporate bullshit are all the woke media and activists who say that it's like some horrible thing for a woman to want to stay home. Man, if I had like a woman who was like the major breadwinner and I would just had to stay home, I would totally cook and clean and be totally happy with that. Like put an apron on, whatever you want. I don't care. I mean, I already do all that. I just also have to work all the time from home. But it's like things get worse economically for people, and we don't acknowledge that. We shame people for wanting things to be better, and we shame people because of we assume that just because of these basic broad criteria, like you're white, that you're privileged. But there's a lot of poor, uneducated white people out there. I think we just, I've said it before, but focusing always on race and gender and ignoring class is a bad thing. It doesn't mean you can't talk about race. It doesn't mean you can't talk about gender. It just means that we've got to do better than just always fanning the flames of the culture wars. Especially when, we start to get into this new line of thinking where everything is like, where people are like, especially the left is losing. The left, which should care deeply about things like free speech, has lost its commitment to free speech because they're more concerned about harm. So, anyways, that's my rant. And yeah, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.